Hello and welcome to episode 111 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, we set up the Space Elevator and Space Mining Module Mark II. We also make super glue, but who cares? Finally, we have a Space Elevator. I am getting the Space Elevator done today no matter what. I am currently crafting the remaining Space Elevator casings. So this is going, it's very slow of course, and this is going to keep going for a long time. One thing I didn't know until a few minutes ago was that I need to make space elevator cables. Well, I just need to make one, but this thing is expensive. So this needs nanotube spools, which is also the research item for the data stick. But they use 4 stacks of 16x graphene wire per spool, and I need a stack of spools. And of course, each 16x graphene wire is 16 graphene. And remember, I need a stack of 4 stacks of them. And graphene is made in an assembler with graphite and wafers. So far I've been using this recipe with the Naquata doped wafers, but I should probably upgrade to this one with americium doped wafers because I don't make Naquata doped wafers anymore. The improved recipe though needs ethyl cyanoacrylate superglue, which I haven't made yet. There's a quest about this actually, all the way back in LUV. And I never did it because I didn't really need to. I will do this, and it seems to be a bit complex. So the final step is just a fluid heater recipe. But before that, there's a chem plant recipe, and this is also fine. But before that, the ethyl cyanoacetate. This seems to be several different recipes that can work. So there's 2 recipes here. I think this top one is better. I think the bottom one is just to get started, but I'm not sure about that either. I need to investigate a bit more. Maybe I'll make a flowchart for this because it is somewhat complex and there are some loops. I need copper 2 sulfate dust. I need cyanoacetic acid dust. Copper 2 sulfate, I can make my first batch like this. Then after that, I can recycle this copper 2 sulfate pentahydrate dust. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. So I will plan that out and also figure out where to put it because I truly have no idea where to put it. And because there are loops, I don't really want to pattern it. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. I've put together the flowchart and it's not too complex. It's mostly linear, but there are 3 loops, 1 perfect loop and 2 imperfect loops. So I'm not going to go into detail about the linear parts. I'll just talk about the loops. The perfect loop is here at an Exxon recipe to make ethyl cyanoacetate. You also get copper 2 sulfate pentahydrate, which you can dehydrate to get copper 2 sulfate dust back. And this is basically a perfect loop. The 2 imperfect loops are here. So let's talk about this one first. So this is to make chloroacetic mixture. When you make that, you also get some acetic anhydride back, which goes into the input. But it's not a perfect loop, so you do need to supply a little bit of extra acetic anhydride with every loop. The chloroacetic mixture goes into a distillation tower, and you get chloroacetic acid, which is used later on. But you also get trichloroacetic acid and dichloroacetic acid, which have no use except to be recycled in a mixer back into chloroacetic mixture. But of course, you don't get the full refund, so you need to make more chloroacetic mixture. Besides that, honestly, pretty straightforward. It's a lot of exons, so I'll try and do it all in one exon if I can, but I don't know if I can. I have further enshittified my chem building. I'll deal with this at some point. But yeah, I have it going. I needed 3 different exons. Everything is being recycled where it can. And at the end of the day, I get ethyl cyanoacrylate superglue. Currently, I'm just using an LUV fluid heater single block, but really I should be using the multi-block, and I don't really have space for it, so I haven't. But this will very slowly build up, a little bit too slowly, to be honest. I think I should make the multi-block, but once I have enough, I can finish off this quest from LUV, and once I have 1 million at least, I can request my space elevator cable. There's some other stuff I need, but honestly, it's not that bad. Even the 224k graphite, that's fine. It's a lot, of course, but I can just summon a bunch of these meteors. I better get started on that. Oh my god. Finally done. So many blocks. So many blocks. Now, of course, a multi such as the space elevator is deserving of its own building. And actually, I did a little bit of investigation. And to finish the game, I'm going to need approximately like 6 to 8 space elevators. I can get by with fewer, I can get by with more. But I'm going to plan for 8, I think. And 8 isn't that many. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a very cool design. This is inspired by one of the designs I've seen on the loading screen. I don't remember exactly what it's called right now, but I'll try to find it and put it up on screen. Now, I don't want to copy that exactly, but it has given me an idea. So I need to clear out this big sphere, and then I can get to actually building. I think it's going to look really good. And this will just be the first space elevator. I have plans for 8, right? So what I'm thinking of doing is having one here, and then putting the 7 others kind of just around the base. But okay, let's place some block. Was that too epic? That might have been too epic. But I think it deserves it. This is a pretty big milestone. And it's sexy as hell. Like, this thing is great. I love it. Best of all, it makes a sound. And it has this space elevator thing that occasionally goes up and down. It's pretty sick. I think it does need to have a hole in my glass ceiling, so I have a single 1-block hole. And because this is an entity, it fits in the 1-block hole. Just like the meteor. There's only a 1-block hole now. Yeah, this was super fun to build. I don't think it's as detailed as my inspiration picture, the one that I showed before, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Now, to actually use this thing. Yeah, I need to figure that out. And also, I need to install some modules. Right now, I just have these 5 energy hatches, And I don't even need them to be 5 energy hatches. I just put them down so that the structure would form because I didn't have enough base casings. But this is a Mark II space elevator, so I can do Mark II modules. And I am going to start with solving my phosphorus issue with a Mark II mining module. The parts that go into this are pretty straightforward, but it does need a mining module Mark I, and this is also pretty easy to make. The Mark II module needs a Mark I module for research, quite a bit of EU per tick for this research, and this research is going to take a while. The Mark I module also needs research, and it needs a Void Miner 3, and a Void Miner 3 needs a Void Miner 2 research, so I need to do this as well. And to make a Void Miner 3, I need Oganesson. And I need to make, I think, what, 2 of these? No, 3 of these, I think, to get my first Mark II module. So that's going to be 60k Oganesson. That's a lot. Now, I can fuse it, but I need molten californium. And I don't have californium, but I can fuse it. There's a lot of fusing that needs to happen to get to californium. Or I have all this depleted Mark II Naquata-based fuel, and this gives me californium and Oganesson directly. It's not a lot, but I have a decent amount of Mark II fuel now, depleted. This is, what, 471 buckets? That alone might get me enough Oganesson without even processing the californium. But this is also going to get me about 20% of 16k californium, so I should be able to do this. So I'm going to get to crafting. I'll get my Mark II mining module. I'll also look at other modules and see if I need them or if I want them. And I'll also try to figure out how the mining module actually works. And then I'll set everything up and also, bring up power connection here and applied energistics and stuff. And I will be back. While I'm waiting for my scans and stuff, I'm just going to make a staff of teleportation. This is basically an upgraded staff of traveling. It needs an Endist Pearl, which is pretty cheap, and 2 ZPM field gens. So this is a pretty cheap upgrade. And I don't really need it because I pretty much already have infinite RF as far as the staff of traveling is concerned. But the 16 block range blink is pretty nice, and the no cooldown. Why not? I have nothing better to do. Oh, right, it's not a quest. Now to install these modules, there are different slots here. So each one of these 2x4 columns is a module slot. So what I can do is place the mining module here, for example. I can set my filters for what kinds of ores to pull and all kinds of things like that. And it also needs input hatches, output buses, stuff like that, and those all go over here. It does, of course, need energy, but the energy hatch doesn't go on the structure. It actually goes in the main structure. So one of these bottom slots needs to be replaced with an energy hatch, or multiple, and that will provide energy to all the modules around the space elevator. Now, of course, this is going to cost a lot of energy, and I should slowly stop using my Tesla tower. And in fact, I've already started work on that. I now have a laser vacuum pipe connection that goes into the maintenance tunnels. So I'm glad I didn't fill these up because these have a use again. So this goes all the way here. I can bend this pipe pretty easily with laser vacuum mirrors. They're a little expensive because of the chromatic glass. Not even expensive, they just take some time to make. But if I want to split these, I need to use active transformers. So here I have a 16,384 amp laser target hatch, and here I have two 256 amp laser source hatches. So you can kind of think of this as like an intermediate LSC. So this has its own internal storage. Not really, it's just in the hatches, but 16,000 amps come in, and then from here 256 amps go out in both directions. Of course, amps are request based, so I'm not oversupplying anything. Nothing's gonna explode. And this basically allows me to have multiple connections as long as the total sum of all the source hatches here is less than or equal to the sum of all the target hatches, which in this case is just the one target hatch. So I have 16,000 EU to play with, and so far I've used 512 in 2 directions. I had to use this for a couple of things. Specifically, one of the researches took an absolute ton of EU per tick to run. I think it was the Void Miner 3. It was 31 million EU per tick. My Tesla tower, my Tesla covers here actually couldn't keep up. So I had to use a laser connection, which is good because I can reuse this laser connection to actually connect to the buffer here, which would be better. What I need to do now is do a little bit of infrastructure work, which is not really that interesting to watch, so I'll just kind of do it off camera, but I need to make a laser connection that goes all the way to the space elevator. And I did make some space here in this pillar thing underneath where all my logistics can go. So yeah, I'm gonna work on that. It's gonna take some time because chromatic glass is super slow. And I'm sure there are more quirks to this mining module, but I need energy to see how they work. So I'm going to work on this first. Okay, we now have a power connection. This laser line comes from my maintenance tunnels. So I have it coming all the way here. I decided to kind of hide it a little bit, sort of. I don't know if I want to have the maintenance tunnel be visible or not. I think I could make it look cool if it was visible, but for now I've just gone with hiding it. And this leads into the central tower, or the central pillar column, and it goes up into the space elevator. Currently, space elevator is running off of 256 amps of UV, which should be more than enough for running one module. So the way this module works is it's actually it's not complicated. There's just a lot of different options. If you turn everything on, you should be able to see that, like the Tesla tower, the space mining module has a bunch of different inputs in these parameters. So there's distance, there's max parallels, there's overdrive, there's mode, there's range, and there's step. These are all explained pretty well on the wiki, so I'll just quickly go over them here. But actually before that, let's take a look at NEI. So if you look at NEI, you should see a bunch of different possible meteors to mine. There's a lot of duplicates here. It's just changing the mining drone and the rods and the drill tips, but the information here is the same for all the meteors. There's the EU usage. The Mark II mining module has 4 parallels, so we can do 4 of these. The time is how long it takes to mine, of course. It tells you that it needs a Mark II module or not, or Mark III, and then the parameters I mentioned before. So each meteor has a distance, a size, a minimum computation, and a weight. And a lot of the distances, in fact, I think maybe all the distances are given as a range. So there is going to be overlap between different types of asteroids. So when we mine these asteroids, like for example, if I try to mine this asteroid at a distance of 30 to 230, that's a pretty big range. But if I'm targeting this, I may also get this cheese ore, which I should probably avoid because the distance ranges here overlap. Here, okay, I found a page that's actually legible. So here, for example, it says size 61 to 191. What happens is the game will randomly choose a number in this range, and that is the total number of stacks of ore in the asteroid. The size is modified by the mining drone that's used, and also by the plasma that is provided to the space mining module, which, by the way, it needs plasma. The minimum computation is the minimum computation. We need to provide computation to this thing for it to work, similar to the research station. And there's no benefit to providing more computation than the minimum, I don't think. I need to find some way to provide exactly the minimum amount of computation, and I think I know how. But we'll come back to that. And finally, the weight. This does not refer to the mass of the asteroid. This is the weight in terms of like probability distribution. So asteroids with a higher weight are more likely to appear. So that's all the information on NEI. As for the input parameters here, distance, like in NEI, is the same thing. So it sets the distance that the mining module is searching in. So depending on the distance, we get access to a different group of ores to mine from. Max parallels is the maximum number of parallels, which I'm going to leave at 4, which is the default. Overdrive, according to the wiki, increases the amount of ore per second at the cost of plasma per second. So by default, this thing requires some plasma to operate. And at the moment, I think I'm just going to provide helium plasma, but after I make a compact fusion reactor, I'll try to provide something better. But for now, it's going to need 825 liters of helium plasma. I don't know if that's per second or per tick or per operation. I'm not sure, but it does need helium plasma. And if I provide more helium plasma with this overdrive turned on, what happens is there's a time discount for higher tier plasmas above helium, and there's also a size multiplier. It's quite small for helium plasma, which is why I'm not going to bother with overdrive for now. But for the higher tier plasmas, it can be quite significant. It's basically more ore at the cost of plasma. More ore and faster. The specifics of the speed increase are on the wiki. And now these 3 parameters are all related. So mode, as you can see here, it says mode static. What that means is it's only going to search at this specific distance. And then these 2 input parameters don't matter. But if I change it to 1, it makes the mode dynamic. And what that does is it changes the distance within this range at this step size. So if the step is 20 and the range is 200, it's going to search at like 0, then 20, then 40, then 60, and so on until 200, and then it'll reset. This is good if you're not targeting any specific ore, but for now, I think I will be using this in a targeted way. So I'm going to have to probably find a spreadsheet of all the ores with their distances and then choose a distance according to what I want. So yeah, kind of complex actually, which is cool and interesting. I do need to set up the input hatches and stuff for the plasma and an output for the ores, and also have to make some of these mining drones. It's not consumed, so I may as well make the best one that I can, which for me, I believe would be this one. Very, very expensive at the moment, but it's a one-time investment, so I should do this. The mining drone Mark 9 needs 8 infinity drill tips and a bunch of other stuff. And because of research station stuff, I basically have to make a lot of them in sequence. But cool, I'm gonna try and get that set up, and then I'll be back. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will expand our ore processing network with the ultimate goal of having 5 integrated ore factories, processing ore from blood magic meteors as well as from space mining. We may also set up space pumping to address various fluid shortages. Basically, it's once again time to make the base more robust than it currently is. See you next time.